Part 1. Curator had spent 300 years studying fear. She had cataloged terrors that would break most minds. She had documented the singing black holes of the outer rim, whose frequencies drove entire crews to madness. She had filed reports on the memory parasites of Prime, creatures that ate your past and left you a stranger to yourself. She had even witnessed the mathematical proofs of the collapse, equations so fundamentally wrong that understanding them caused permanent psychological damage. The Galactic Fear Archive existed for one purpose. It collected and studied everything in the universe that could terrify sentient beings. Every species contributed their nightmares. Every civilization shared the phenomena that had traumatized their populations. The archive served as both warning and protection. If you knew what could hurt you, perhaps you could prepare for it. Was good at her job. Her 4 eyes could scan documents faster than most species could think. Her secondary brain allowed her to process disturbing content without suffering the usual psychological effects. She had been designed for this work, engineered by her people specifically to handle the weight of universal terror. So when the human delegation arrived at the galactic community's doorstep, she expected routine work. A new species meant new fears to catalog. Every world had its predators, its disasters, its diseases. Earth would be no different. She dispatched a research team to collect data, standard protocol. They would gather information on dangerous animals, natural disasters, historical traumas, and any unique psychological threats. Most species yielded between 50 and 200 entries. The had provided 112. The had offered 78. Even the ancient, who had existed for millions of years, had only contributed 341 documented terrors. The research team returned after 6 standard months, met them at the archive's primary intake station, ready to process another routine addition to the collection. The team leader, unnamed, would not meet her eyes. "There is a problem," said. "What kind of problem?" "The data cache. It crashed 3 of our processing systems." Felt her secondary brain activate, preparing for stress. How large is the data set? Handed her a tablet. The number displayed made no sense. She checked it twice, then 3 times. She ran a diagnostic on her visual processing centers to ensure she was not malfunctioning. "This cannot be correct," she said. "We at 7 times," replied. "The number is accurate." The dataset from Earth contained over 4 million entries. 4 million documented sources of terror from a species that had only achieved within the last 2 centuries. A species whose entire recorded history spanned less than 10,000 years. Immediately suspected an error. Perhaps the research team had their data. Perhaps they had included duplicates or irrelevant material. She ordered a full review and began examining the entries herself. What she found changed everything. The first entry she opened was labeled Vampire. The file contained thousands of sub-entries, variations on a single concept. A creature that drank blood, a being that could not die, a monster that was once human but had become something else. The variations spanned centuries of human culture, appearing in every region of their world, evolving and changing, but always maintaining the same core terror. Check the archive's natural phenomena database. No such creature existed anywhere in the galaxy. She opened another entry, Werewolf, a human that transformed into a beast, a loss of control, of identity, of humanity itself, thousands of variations, thousands of years of development. No such creature existed. Ghost, the dead returning, the past refusing to stay buried, consciousness surviving the death of the body in twisted, malevolent form. No documented phenomena matched. Demon, pure evil given form, entities from outside reality that existed only to corrupt and destroy, beings that could not be reasoned with, could not be understood, could only be survived or succumbed to. The archive contained nothing like this. Worked for 7 days without rest. Her secondary brain burned with activity as she processed entry after entry. Zombies, eldritch abominations, apocalyptic scenarios of every conceivable type, body horror that turned the self into a prison, psychological torments that attacked the very concept of identity, cosmic terrors that reduced existence itself to meaningless accident. None of it was real. That was the problem. That was what crashed the processing systems. The archive existed to catalog actual phenomena, real threats, documented terrors, but the humans had submitted 4 million entries, and the vast majority of them were inventions. They had created these horrors, made them up, imagined them into existence for no reason other than to frighten themselves. Did not sleep. She did not eat. She cross-referenced the human horror corpus against every entry in the archive's natural phenomena database. The results made her secondary brain threaten to shut down entirely. For nearly every documented cosmic terror, humans had independently imagined something similar, often centuries before they could have encountered it. Sometimes their invented versions were worse than reality. The singing black holes of the outer rim drove crews mad with frequencies beyond normal perception. Humans had invented cosmic horror, a genre of fiction, specifically designed to convey the terror of incomprehensible phenomena that shattered sanity. They had done this in the early 20th century of their calendar, long before they knew black holes existed. The memory parasites of Prime erased victims' pasts. Humans had imagined amnesia horror, scenarios where identity itself became unstable and unreliable. They had dozens of variations, each exploring different aspects of the terror. The collapse, those universe-breaking equations, had destroyed 17 exploration vessels and an entire colony. Humans had invented the concept of information so dangerous that knowing it caused harm. They treated it as entertainment. Compiled her findings into a report. It took her 3 additional weeks. When she finished, she sat in her office and stared at the wall for 6 hours, processing what she had learned. The human species had existed for approximately 300,000 years. They had developed complex civilization within the last 10,000. They had achieved within the last 200. In cosmic terms, they were infants, newborns, barely worth noticing. But in those brief years of existence, they had imagined more sources of terror than the rest of the galaxy had encountered in billions of years of actual experience. They had invented fears that did not exist. They had created monsters that had never lived. They had dreamed up apocalypses that had never occurred. And they had done it deliberately, purposefully, as a form of recreation. Submitted her report to the Archive Council. She flagged it with the highest priority designation available. She marked it as a potential existential concern. Within 1 hour, she received a response. The council had scheduled an emergency session. All 17 members would attend. They had never convened a full emergency session in 300 years of service. She prepared her presentation. She organized her evidence. She rehearsed her conclusions. But she could not shake one thought from her mind. One question that her secondary brain kept returning to again and again, despite her attempts to suppress it. If humans could imagine all these terrors without ever experiencing them, what did that say about what lived inside their minds? What kind of species spent its brief existence inventing new ways to be afraid? What purpose could possibly be served by manufacturing nightmares? Had spent 3 centuries studying fear. She had believed she understood it. She had thought she had seen everything the universe could produce. She had been wrong. The humans had shown her something new, something unprecedented, something that frightened her in ways she could not quite explain. A species that did not wait for the universe to terrify them. A species that did it themselves. Part 2. The Archive Council chamber had not seen a full assembly in over 2,000 years. 17 seats arranged in a perfect circle, each designed to accommodate a different species, each equipped with translation systems and atmospheric controls. The room itself was ancient, built during the archive's founding, when the first civilizations had agreed that understanding fear might help them survive it. Stood at the center of the circle, her presentation materials floating in holographic display around her. She had prepared for 3 days. She had rehearsed her conclusions until they felt worn and familiar. But standing before the council, facing the most powerful minds in the galaxy, she felt something she rarely experienced. She felt nervous. Counselor of the spoke first. His species had founded the archive. Their contributions formed its original core. His voice carried the weight of that history. Curator, your report has caused considerable concern. Please present your findings. Activated her displays. The chamber filled with images, documents, data streams. 4 million entries compressed into visual form. The council members shifted in their seats, their various physiologies expressing various forms of unease. The human species submitted their cultural database for cataloging 6 months ago, began. Standard protocol required us to extract all fear-relevant content and file it appropriately. We expected between 50 and 200 entries, consistent with other recently contacted species. She paused, her secondary brain pulsed with stress. We received over 4 million. The chamber erupted, 17 voices speaking 17 languages, all expressing the same thing: disbelief, confusion, alarm. The translation system struggled to keep up. Counselor raised a limb, calling for silence. The chamber slowly quieted. 4 million entries, he repeated. That exceeds the combined submissions of every species currently in the archive. Correct, said, but the volume is not the primary concern. The nature of the content is. She shifted the display. The holographic images changed, showing example after example of human horror creations. Vampires and werewolves and ghosts, demons and monsters and apocalypses, cosmic entities and psychological torments and body horror. None of this is real, she said. Humans invented these terrors. They created them deliberately over thousands of years purely as entertainment. Counselor Morth leaned forward. His people had suffered greatly from universal terrors. They had lost colonies, exploration vessels, entire populations. Their caution was legendary. Entertainment, he said. They frighten themselves for amusement. Yes, they write stories about these concepts. They create visual media. They design interactive experiences. Their entire species participates in voluntary exposure to invented terrors. This is insane, said Counselor Thresh of the. Fear is a survival mechanism. It exists to warn us of danger. What purpose is served by creating false dangers? Hesitated. She had asked herself the same question. Her secondary brain had processed it for weeks. She still did not have a satisfying answer. I do not know, she admitted, but I can show you something more concerning. She shifted the display again. 2 columns appeared side by side. On the left, documented natural phenomena from the archive. On the right, human horror inventions that matched them. The singing black holes of the outer rim, she said. Discovered by the expedition 40,000 years ago. Documented cause of crew insanity across 17 incidents. The left column showed the official archive entry. Frequency analysis, psychological impact reports, casualty statistics. The right column showed human cosmic horror fiction, stories about incomprehensible phenomena, entities beyond understanding, sounds that shattered sanity. Humans invented this concept, said. They call it Lovecraftian horror, named after a human writer who died over 200 years before their first. He imagined cosmic terrors that matched our documented phenomena with disturbing accuracy. He did this without any knowledge that such things existed. The council members exchanged glances. The translation systems hummed with whispered conversations. Continued, example after example, the memory parasites matched by human amnesia horror, the collapse matched by human concepts, the void entities of the galactic rim matched by human eldritch abominations. In every case, she concluded, humans imagined similar terrors years, decades, or centuries before encountering actual examples. In many cases, their invented versions are more sophisticated than reality. They have thought about these concepts more deeply than species who actually experienced them. Counselor Morth stood. His species rarely displayed emotion, but something in his posture suggested agitation. My people lost 17 exploration vessels to the void entities, he said. 3 colony worlds fell silent. 20 million died or disappeared. We documented those horrors through tremendous sacrifice. He pointed at the human horror display. You are telling me that humans imagined the same things while sitting safely on there, that they invented these terrors for fun. Yes, said, that is exactly what I am telling you. The chamber fell silent. 17 species, each with their own history of cosmic trauma, each with their own catalog of suffered terrors, all confronting the same impossible fact. Humans had not waited to encounter the universe's horrors. They had imagined them first. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Some council members argued that humans must be sensitive to universal threats. Perhaps their species possessed some latent ability to perceive dangers across space and time. Perhaps their horror traditions represented genuine prophetic visions. Others suggested something darker. Perhaps humans were somehow manifesting these terrors into existence. Perhaps their imaginations were reaching out into the universe and creating the very things they feared. Perhaps they were the cause, not the prediction. A faction led by Counselor Thresh recommended quarantine. Isolate the humans until their nature could be better understood. Limit their contact with other species. Prevent potential contamination. But on the 3rd day, an elderly requested permission to address the council. His name was. He had served as an advisor to the archive for over a century. His specialty was the psychological foundations of fear. You are all missing the point, said. His voice was quiet but carried well in the circular chamber. You are looking at this situation through the lens of your own experiences. You see humans as either prophets or threats, but you are not considering a third possibility. He moved to the center of the chamber, where had stood during her presentation. He seemed small among the holographic displays, but his presence commanded attention. Consider the evolutionary history of the human species, he said. They developed on a world filled with predators. For most of their existence, they were prey animals, weak, slow, poorly adapted for combat. They survived not through strength or speed, but through intelligence. He gestured at the horror displays surrounding him. Specifically, they survived through threat modeling, imagining dangers before encountering them, preparing for attacks that might never come. Their ancestors who failed to anticipate predators were eaten. Their ancestors who imagined threats everywhere survived to reproduce. Counselor tilted his head. You are suggesting that human horror fiction is an extension of prey animal instincts. More than that, said. I am suggesting that humans have developed the most sophisticated threat modeling system in the galaxy. They do not wait to encounter terrors. They invent them. They stress-test their own minds against imagined horrors so that real ones will not break them. He paused, letting the implication settle. Every other species in this room has been traumatized by cosmic horrors. The lost colonies to the singing black holes. The lost millions to the void entities. The spent 3 centuries recovering from the mathematical collapse. We have all suffered. We have all been surprised and overwhelmed by things we never imagined. He pointed at the human displays. But humans have imagined all of it. And worse, They have been training themselves to face cosmic horror for their entire existence. They have been preparing for things that had not happened yet. The chamber was silent. The translation systems hummed. The weight of words pressed down on every council member. "You asked what purpose is served by creating false dangers," said. "The purpose is inoculation, vaccination against psychological collapse. Humans expose themselves to imagined terrors so that real terrors cannot destroy them." Counselor Thresh spoke slowly. "You are saying that humans may be psychologically resistant to cosmic horror." "I am saying that they may be immune to it," replied. "They have already experienced everything the universe can throw at them. They experienced it in fiction first." The council voted to classify the findings. They voted to summon a human representative for direct consultation. They voted to consider a proposal that had never been made in the archive's long history. Perhaps humans were not a threat to be contained. Perhaps they were a resource to be utilized. Part 3. Ambassador Sarah received the summons on a Tuesday morning. The message came through official diplomatic channels, marked with priority codes she had never seen before. The Archive Council requested her presence for consultation on a matter of galactic significance. She arrived expecting a routine diplomatic meeting, perhaps a cultural exchange proposal, perhaps a request for access to human databases. The Galactic Fear Archive had catalogued Earth's horror traditions, and she assumed they had questions about context or interpretation. She was wrong. The council chamber was full when she entered. 17 species, 17 seats, 17 pairs of eyes or optical sensors or sensory organs fixed on her as she walked to the center of the room. The attention felt physical, like pressure against her skin. "Ambassador," said Counselor, "thank you for responding to our summons." "Of course," said, "how can I help the archive?" Gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic displays. Recognized them immediately. Horror movies, novels, video games. The entire breadth of human fear fiction compressed into floating images that surrounded her like a cage. "We have spent considerable time analyzing your species' contributions to our collection," said. "We have reached conclusions that concern us greatly." Waited, she had learned patience in her diplomatic career. Let them explain. Let them reveal what they actually wanted. "Your species has imagined more sources of terror than all other known civilizations combined," continued. "You have invented horrors that match phenomena we have documented over billions of years of galactic exploration. You have done this without any knowledge that such phenomena existed." "We have active imaginations," said carefully. "You have more than that," shifted the displays. The horror images were replaced by something else. Star maps, expedition routes, areas marked in red indicating danger zones. "Exploration beyond the galactic rim has been stalled for 200,000 years," said. "Every species that attempts deep reconnaissance eventually encounters something that shatters them. Psychological contamination, existential collapse. Entire civilizations have fallen after their explorers returned with knowledge that could not be integrated." Studied the maps. The red zones covered vast areas. The explored regions seemed tiny by comparison. "We do not know what exists in those spaces," said. "We only know that it breaks minds, it destroys cultures, it ends civilizations. We have lost more explorers than we can count." "I'm sorry," said, "but I'm not sure how this relates to human horror fiction." Counselor Morth stood. His species had suffered more than most from deep space exploration. His voice carried the weight of that suffering. "It relates because your species may be uniquely suited to survive what we cannot," he said. "You have already imagined the worst. You have written stories about it, made visual media about it, created interactive experiences about it. You have turned cosmic terror into entertainment." Felt something shift in her understanding of the conversation. This was not a routine diplomatic meeting. This was a recruitment pitch. "You want humans to explore the rim," she said. "We want humans to join the Deep Reconnaissance Initiative," Counselor confirmed. "Not because you are stronger than other species, not because you are faster or more advanced or better equipped, but because you have already faced the darkness in your minds and survived." The chamber fell silent. The holographic displays shifted again, showing the full catalog of human horror alongside the archive's documented phenomena. The comparison was stark. Humans had imagined more, and often imagined worse, than the universe had actually produced. Took a long moment to process what she was being asked. Her government would need to be consulted. Treaties would need to be negotiated. Resources would need to be allocated. But beneath all the political considerations, she felt something else, something personal. She thought about all the horror movies she had watched as a child, all the scary stories she had read, all the nightmares that had seemed so real and so terrible. She had grown up surrounded by invented terrors, learning to face them, learning to survive them. Every human had. "I have a question," she said. The council waited. "You cataloged our horror fiction, all 4 million entries, or however many there are now. You analyzed our vampires and werewolves and cosmic entities. You studied our apocalypses and our monsters and our psychological torments." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Did you also catalog how those stories end?" The council members exchanged glances. The translation systems hummed with confused queries. "I don't understand the question," Counselor said. "Horror stories have endings," said. "The vampire gets staked, the monster gets defeated, the apocalypse gets averted, the survivors escape and rebuild. Did you catalog that part?" Silence. The displays flickered as the archive systems processed her question. "We cataloged the terrors," Curator said. She stood near the edge of the chamber, watching the exchange. "We did not consider the resolutions to be relevant." "Then you missed half the data," said. "Maybe more than half." She stepped forward, approaching the holographic displays. Her hands moved through images of monsters and nightmares, pushing them aside to reveal what lay beneath. "Humans don't just imagine terrors," she said. "We imagine defeating them. Every horror story is also a survival story. Every monster is a problem to be solved. Every apocalypse is a challenge to be overcome." She pulled up example after example. Movies where the heroes won. Novels where the darkness was pushed back. Games where players faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. "You said we've been inoculating ourselves against cosmic horror, training ourselves to face the darkness. That's true, but you missed the second half of the training." She turned to face the council directly. "We don't just learn to face the darkness, we learn to beat it." The chamber was silent. 17 species, each with their own history of cosmic trauma, each with their own catalog of suffered terrors, all watching a single human reframe their understanding of her species. "Your explorers encountered things that broke them," said. "They saw horrors they could not comprehend and they shattered. Their civilizations shattered with them. You have spent 200,000 years being defeated by the unknown." She smiled, and there was something fierce in it. "Humans have been rehearsing victory for 10,000 years. We have been telling ourselves stories about facing the worst and surviving, about confronting monsters and killing them, about staring into the void and refusing to blink." She gestured at the horror displays. "This is not a record of our fears. This is a record of our defiance. Every horror story is a battle plan. Every monster is a training exercise. Every apocalypse is a dress rehearsal for the real thing." The council members shifted in their seats. Some appeared uncomfortable. Others appeared intrigued. A few appeared something that could not quite identify, something that might have been hope. "We will consult with our government," said. "We will consider your proposal for the Deep Reconnaissance Initiative, but I want you to understand something first." She met each council member's gaze in turn. If we join this initiative, we will not be exploring the galactic rim as victims waiting to be traumatized. We will be going as warriors who have already fought these battles in their minds. We have already faced the worst the universe can imagine because we imagined it first. And we have already decided that we will win. She turned and walked toward the chamber exit. At the door, she paused and looked back. Maybe you should start cataloging our victories. You might find them useful. She left. The chamber remained silent for a long time after her departure. Eventually, Counselor spoke. We have spent billions of years documenting fear, he said. Perhaps it is time to document something else. He turned to Curator. Begin a new collection. Label it accordingly. Nodded, her secondary brain pulsed with something unfamiliar, something that felt almost like excitement. What should I call it? She asked. Considered the question. He thought about the human ambassador, walking confidently into the unknown. He thought about 4 million horror stories, each one ending with survival. He thought about a species that had spent its entire existence preparing to face the darkness and win. Call it the Hope Archive, he said, and start with the humans. The archive had existed for billions of years. It had documented every terror the universe could produce. It had cataloged the nightmares of 1,000 civilizations. But it had never cataloged the antidote. Until now. Began her work. Across the galaxy, diplomatic messages reached Earth. Negotiations began. Proposals were drafted and revised and approved. Humans prepared to venture beyond the rim, into spaces that had broken every species that attempted them. And in the archive, a new collection grew. Stories of survival, tales of victory, records of a species that had manufactured both the disease and the cure and had never learned to accept defeat. The darkness was waiting. It had always been waiting. But now something was coming to meet it, something that had already imagined the worst, something that had already decided to win. Humanity was ready.